please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
We will watch out for that, but now let's move on to the big CNBC TV18 exclusive. The Telecom Commission has approved the National Digital Communication Policy 2018, the focus being on the digital transformation of the telecom sector. Now let's cut across to our colleagues Reema and Prashant in conversation with the Telecom Secretary herself, Aruna Sundararajan.
Hi Mangalam, thanks so much for that. Yes, the National Telecom Policy was cleared overnight, which envisages a $100 billion investment in the digital communication sector by 2022. And they've also cleared the net neutrality principle, which basically makes internet equal and free for all. We're now joined by Ms. Aruna Sundararajan. Good morning, ma'am, and thanks so much for joining in. Let me start with the government eyeing this investment of $100 billion in the next 4 years in the telecom sector. What is the game plan with respect to attracting this investment? Because currently, telcos are bleeding, the revenues are falling down, many of them are loss-making, the debt on the balance sheet is ballooned.
Yeah, first of all, you know, the reason why we have estimated $100 billion of investment as being required is that, you know, while we have the world's second largest telecom market, you must remember that we still have only about 35% of the country connected to the internet. We still have a very large population that is yet to be covered by both, you know, smartphones and the internet. And therefore, this is a growth market. Given that India is one of the fastest digitizing countries in the world, and we are an aspirational country, you know, the government's plans for Digital India envisage that we must have a robust digital communications infrastructure that will facilitate not just personal communication, but also, since a lot of the movement of even physical goods and services is going to move online, we do need to put in that kind of infrastructure to satisfy the aspirations of 1 billion Indians. Second, what is the game plan for making sure that this investment comes into the sector? We are focusing on 3 things. One, we are focusing on ensuring that the regulatory compliances for the sector are brought down so that there's ease of doing business. Second, we want to make the market fundamentally attractive to investors. We believe that despite the current stress in the sector, that is a short-lived phenomenon. We fully expect to see that with the current rounds of consolidation that are happening by the end of the year, the sector will settle down, and after that, these telcos will be able to harness the growth that lies ahead. Please don't forget that we're growing at about 800% year-on-year for data. Yeah. And in fact, just the last year, we went to the maximum mobile data consumption in the world. And the third plank of this is that, you know, government will actively work with the, you know, telcos, the infrastructure service providers, to ensure that a number of issues, whether it is rights of way, whether it's ensuring that sharing is allowed, opening up the sector for new services. As you know, in-flight connectivity, we've permitted internet telephony. Yesterday, we took this big step forward that cascading taxation will go for VNOs. So over the last few months, I would say, you've seen a lot of reform in this sector, and we fully intend to step up the momentum on that.
Right. Ma'am, just to press on that point, good morning, Prashant also joining in. You know, the annual spend by telecom companies works out to about $13–14 billion or so. I mean, Jio spends $7–8 billion, Airtel about $3 billion, Idea, Vodafone $2 billion. You include ISPs like Google, Amazon, etc. That's another $1–1.5 billion. You know, we are talking about $100 billion over a period of the next 4 years or so. There is still a significant gap. Are we only talking about telecom infrastructure and the large companies that I mentioned, or I mean, do you envisage this coming in from other routes into other areas as well?
No, first of all, let me clarify that this investment is not just in terms of the core network infrastructure. We're looking at every piece of investment going into the telecom ecosystem, and that would include ambitious plans that we have for Make in India. You know that currently we're importing a lot of telecom equipment. Just as you saw the country's largest, the world's largest mobile manufacturing coming into India, we do have plans that there should be substantive investments going into telecom equipment manufacturing also. So this figure of $100 billion will, is really the aggregate of all that expenditure.
Do you have visibility in terms of a proposal or something? Which, so it does clarify what you're saying, but do you have a firm proposal?
See, once the policy is taken to cabinet and approved, then we will have to actually follow that up with a series. So, for example, how do we promote Make in India? All those areas we'll have to actually sit down and put detailed roadmaps for, Industry 4.0. All these we'll actually have to start working with different segments of industry to evolve specific roadmaps. See, on 5G, we set up this task force. The roadmap is now in sight, and by September, we hope that the roadmap will actually be finally, placed before the government. So, on each of these pieces, we will have to do specific work.
Have any global giants or global companies evinced interest in investing in India's digital ecosystem?
Well, yes. For example, you already know that people have started partnering with telcos on various pieces of the 5G ecosystem. Ericsson, for example, has already announced ambitious plans. So we've been speaking to some of the other, global OEMs and majors as well. So that is definitely a piece of work in progress.
Ma'am, if you look at historically investments by the telecom sector, about half of the investments which have been made so far has essentially been into spectrum investments. Is there any plan to, incentivize more investment in that particular area, maybe bring down levies, taxes, that kind of thing? I mean, would the government be open to that in the future?
See, the policy has already signaled a very clear intent to rationalize the burden of levies on the sector. We do recognize that we need to make sure that there is enough surplus left with the telcos to reinvest in the sector. And in fact, in yesterday's Telecom Commission meeting also, everybody said that sustained growth of the sector, financial health of the sector, these would be key aspects which we will keep in mind while translating the policy into specific actions.
So, ma'am, how much could the levies come down by? Say, would you look to bring down the license fee or the spectrum usage charge? And what is the timeline to rationalize these costs?
No, as I said, we will now start work on that. And since, as I said, it's work in progress, clearly it would be very premature of me to mention any figures at this point. But the broad signal is there. You've heard the telecom minister, Mr. Manoj Sinha, also mention that it is not revenue maximization that the government is looking at, but government will look at ensuring broadband for all.